Hi, and welcome to week 8. I've added some content here, and I wanted to walk you through it. We've had a few struggles in week 7 and in week 6 with students reaching out to various sources to try to help them understand the stories. So I have put in some videos of me walking you through it, and I would like to see students go back, especially if you plagiarized your work in week 6 and week 7. Please go back and fix those, or if you got a low score on your work in week 6 or week 7 because you were not understanding them, please watch these videos and then go back to week 6 and week 7 and fix that work. Of course, if you did get a 0 for plagiarizing work in week 6, you need to speak with me first, or I won't read a new submission. So if you did the work and got a 0, please make sure you're reading your feedback. Make a time to speak with me. In general, when you're not understanding what you've read and you're not understanding how to do the assignment independently, instead of reaching out to the internet to solve that problem, I'd like you to reach out to me. It's my job. I get paid to help you understand this literature. Popping into one of our help sessions or sending me an email asking for some help would have solved a problem with honor and integrity, where reaching out to the internet to tell you what you weren't understanding is it's not great. It's not a great choice. It's not the honorable choice. You should be able to read and understand these with your own minds and your own brains, and that's what I expect. If you need help with that, I am here to help you. But please reach to me instead of to other sources on the internet, please. All right. So we have in this week a video on understanding everyday use. I will fix the spelling there. Understanding two kinds, understanding battle royale, and understanding the yellow wallpaper. These are all brief, and I do expect you to watch them. Then this week we have some short story analysis resource requirements, and I'm going to go over this with you. This essay will require students to use 6 sources total. Those 6 will include the original short story text. You're going to choose one story to work with. That story is going to be based on which thesis of yours comes out the best, and you'll work with that one. You're going to use one source allowing you to write about the biography of the author. You're going to use one source allowing you to talk about the history the story's characters were living in. You're going to use one source allowing you to talk about the cultural ideas the story wants to change. And you're going to use 2 articles of literary criticism allowing you to join the literary conversation about this text. The original text was provided to you. Biography, history, and cultural context articles will be drawn from class searches, and students will form an approved list of sources together in discussion board. I will approve them, and then after I've approved them, you will then draw from those approved sources. So you're going to work on finding them, and I'll show you how. There will be a video walking you through how to find those kinds of sources. And then you will put them in the discussion board. I'll take a look at what you have found, and I will create a list of approved sources. And then you will choose from that list one source each for biography, history, and cultural context. Okay? And then we will learn together how to draw your literary criticism articles from the Alabama Virtual Library, and I'll have a video teaching you how to do that. So this is a looking ahead. Please don't think I'm asking you to do that this week. That's not what we're doing. You're doing this one step at a time, so please stay with me. I'm just previewing this for you. Okay. I have a handout here on developing a thesis. And this is a really important handout this week because you are trying to create a thesis that follows this pattern. And in the assignment this week, I'm asking you to develop a working thesis for each of the 4 short stories we're working with now. Make sure you have watched those videos. and gone back and fixed the topic versus main idea. If you got a note that you got a 5 out of 10 on that main idea, go back and fix it early in the week before you try to do your thesis, because the thesis really depends on you being able to state that main idea. So make sure that you have that under your belt and you've gotten good feedback for that. You are developing a thesis for all 4 stories, and then I will look at the thesis and tell you whether they are successful or if you need to try them again. Or I'll say, hey, the one for Gilman is absolutely your best. You should be working with Gilman. Or wow, your thesis for the Ellison is perfect. Work with that one. Or I'll give you some additional coaching to make sure you have a good thesis to work with before we go forward. So here's the formula for this. You're to name the story and the author in the sentence. You're to say what you think the author is trying to teach the reader about the culture in which the characters are living. Now that's the main idea, and that comes from last week's work. So if you need to go back and iron out last week's work, make sure you do that first, because this work depends on last week's work having been done successfully or corrected after coaching. Okay? And then it says, what does the story hope to illustrate and or change about the culture? And then you have 5 examples of this. So let's take a look at this. In Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter, Hawthorne uses the character of Hester Prynne to show that women were treated unfairly when it came to adultery in early American culture. Here's another sample. In the novel The Color Purple, Alice Walker shows that black women were doubly oppressed by white people and then oppressed again by black males. And again, we are looking for a thesis. A thesis is something you can argue, maybe even something that might offend somebody, right? So if you're talking about Ellison, maybe you're talking about how the white people aren't really being generous, right? And that the character is trying to show that he shouldn't have to feel grateful for the abuse that he suffered just because he got a scholarship out of it. Push for something arguable, right? Now, I will tell you this. I need you to watch that video on Gilman, because there is an answer for the Gilman. There's no wiggle room for what a thesis should be there. So make sure you watch that video and understand the main idea there. There's no wiggle room there. It's about a particular thing. She's told us as an author, she's written Why I Wrote the Yellow Wallpaper and told us what the thesis is. So make sure you watch that video. Make sure you're using this formula as you formulate your thesis statements this week. Okay? All right. There is a quiz on cultural context and source requirements. You have multiple attempts on this quiz. If you don't do well on it the first time, I'd really like you to reach out, join a help session, get some help before you try it again. All right, and then this is where we start looking for our internet sources. And I'm going to add a video on Tuesday morning about finding these videos, but you can locate them on the internet, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So let's go here to the web. We're in Google, and I want you to Google biography of Amy Tan, for example. And then you're going to look through these sources and you're going to see which one seems like the most reputable. Now, biography.com, that sounds pretty good. I'm liking that. Cliff Notes? Nope. You know how I feel about the Cliff Notes. Those are cheating as far as I'm concerned. And Wikipedia really is not the best. We're trying to avoid Britannica. The Academy of Achievement might be a good one, but I'm probably going to go with this biography.com. I'm going to take a look at it. I want to make sure it has a lot of good stuff in it. It's very, very short. And then I say, oh, that might not be the best one. So I want to analyze it. So I'm actually going to go back to my search, and I'm going to search a little further down, and I'm going to check that Academy of Achievement one, and then I'm going to check that Notable Biographies one. So let's take a look. Now this one looks like it is much more comprehensive than the last one. It's got a lot more information, so this one would be a better one. So we're evaluating the sources that we find online. Let's do another one. So we need to understand a little bit about the cultural context. So let's say we're doing the Ellison. And let's say we're talking about the Jim Crow South, and then we're going to talk about battle royales and see if we can find something about that. Yeah, okay, so there was a battle royale. That's from Flickr. Ah, look at this. That Jim Crow era timeline. I want to take a look at that. This is from Ferris State University. If you see something pop up in your search results that's from a university, that might be worth looking at. And there's a museum and there's a timeline. And I might explore this a little bit. I might explore this Jim Crow museum a little bit more. As a matter of fact, I might say Jim Crow Museum and Battle Royal. And once I've found something new, I might use it to enhance my search. So, oh, look at that. They have a special thing on Ferris State University that's all about this particular battle royale in that took place here in 1914 or 1918, or really it's a history of these battle royales. So 1932, 1934, that puts it right in the time period that our character was looking at. So this looks like it'd be a really great site. So you're doing this for each of the authors, so make sure that you are listening to those videos and listening to the time period that you're researching, and that you're being creative with your term searches. So if we're doing Alice Walker and back to Africa movement from, look at that, Alice Walker. Well, that might, the New Georgia Encyclopedia might work for the biography. Themes and analysis of novels might work. Americans Who Tell the Truth, African American writer in Black history. So we're finding some things for the biography piece here, but you can take this out and just research the Back to Africa movement for the cultural context that you're trying to build, right? So we're thinking about the Back to Africa movement in the Cambridge Guide to African History. So this one might really be worthwhile. The Pan-African Congresses, and this looks like a really strong source. So there's a summary of it, and then you would need to access the whole article. So it didn't turn out to be the whole article there. So this is the Washington Post. That's a possibility. But I want to look at this Black Facts. The Stanford EDU one might be good, but this one looks like it might be good as well. So read it, evaluate it, and see if that might help you understand what 1Gero or D is really up to. Okay, so explore these a little bit, and make sure you are watching those videos to understand. For Amy Tan, for cultural context, you might be looking at Chinese immigration around what was the 1949, and see what's going on there for historical context. So the Chinese Revolution of 1949 is going to tell us why that mom lost everything in 1949 and then came to the United States. So we're looking for the history behind the characters, not the author every time. When we're talking about the history, we're talking about the history the characters are in. And so make sure you watch the videos before you do this, because I'm trying to guide you for what that history is, what the cultural context is. For Amy Tan, for cultural context, you might be looking at Chinese mothers and daughters and see what that relationship is like. And here we even have something about Amy Tan that we can use. Mother-daughter relationships, cultural differences. So you want to explore the internet. You want to think carefully And then ultimately, and I will preview this with you, ultimately I will update, this is hidden from you right now, but I will update the week 9 materials with an approved sources list that comes out of your discussion board this week. Now again, this is an essay where I don't think students are going to be able to do it without joining some help sessions. If you're struggling here, please reach out. Please come to a help session or send me an email and ask me to meet you in Zoom to help you understand what you're trying to do. Thank you. I'll see you in Zoom.